will be your moderator for today's session. NIHERST, the National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, plays a pivotal role in promoting the development of science, technology, and innovation in Trinidad and Tobago. Our initiatives aim to enhance the innovative, creative, and entrepreneurial capabilities of the general population. Through various programs and projects such as the Fab Lab, we strive to foster a culture of innovation and sustainability, preparing our citizens to meet the challenges of the future. So this webinar today is part of our extended commemoration of World Creativity and Innovation Week 2025, a global celebration that highlights the importance of creativity and innovation in all aspects of human development. This celebration encourages individuals and organizations worldwide to engage in creative thinking and innovative practices to address global challenges and achieve sustainable development goals. Today, we have an exciting lineup of speakers who will share their insights on empowering tomorrow, strategies for innovation and sustainable tech. After each presentation, we'll have a brief Q&A session followed by a panel discussion. So we now move on to our speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. Emerson John Charles. Emerson is a leading innovation management specialist with over 15 years of experience in innovation, business development, and entrepreneurship. He is an ISO National Innovation Expert, the chair of the National Mirror Committee for Innovation Management at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, the chair of the Innovation Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and managing partner at Innovators Consulting. A recognized thought leader, Emerson regularly contributes to local business magazines and newspapers and is a featured speaker at industry and organizational events. He played a pivotal role in Trinidad and Tobago's groundbreaking adoption of ISO 56001 and is as its national innovation standard, making it the first and only Caribbean nation to do so. Emerson holds a master's degree in business development and innovation and a bachelor's degree in business administration. He specializes in innovation strategy, fostering innovative cultures, and establishing innovation departments. Mr. John Charles will be presenting on small businesses, big ideas, driving innovation with ISO 56001. Please join me in welcoming Mr. John Charles.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about how small businesses with small teams can have big ideas and become multi-million-dollar organizations with some examples. ISO 6001 is a good guide to help you achieve such things. So I have a very short agenda. We're going to talk about the age of disruption, the common misconceptions when people are managing innovation, of course, the National Innovation Standard, that is the ISO 56001, and the benefits for SMEs of using this standard as a guide. So very quickly, I'm inviting all persons who are innovation professionals. That's whether you're into intellectual property, if you're an inventor, definitely if you're dealing with frontier technologies such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, drone technology, to join this community of practice to help you achieve your goals. On our board, we have intellectual property attorneys, we have a C-suite executive from digital group, and we have a director of modernization for the Ministry of Public Admin and AI. So we have a diverse team. So I'm going to start very quickly on the first example of how a group, a small team could compete internationally with established.
The entire video was made by an This entire video was made by an 11-year-old and her dad using only AI. She sat down, picked a style, tweaked the shots, and brought her anime vision to life. And the best part is it's not that hard to do. First, they used Midjourney's Niji mode to create anime-style frames. Then they fed those images into Lumaray 2's image-to-video AI, turning those still images into smooth animation. But they didn't stop there, because for sound, they used Audio, which syncs voices and sound effects directly from the video itself. And the music, that was generated by Suno AI, which created an original anime soundtrack from scratch. So it used to take entire teams of animators, sound designers, and composers. Now, a kid and her dad can do it home on their computer. What do you think, though? Is this the future of animation?
Thank you. So we're coming back to our PowerPoint. And I want you to put in the chat, what do you think is going on that will allow a child and her father to create top quality animation that previously would have needed lots of professionals and millions, if not billions of dollars spent. And we do have a local example of someone who has been able to do that. Alwyn Wayne formed WePay in just 2017, and he's from Point Fortin. And in just a few years, he's now the #1 payment platform in the Caribbean. And his vision, we're talking about scaling and competing on a global level. He has his business operating. He's been to West Africa. He's been, of course, to Jamaica, to Latin America. And just last year, a few months ago, he bought a company in Miami. So I assume that something like that costs millions of dollars. And his company, I was just an idea in 2017, is really in the millions of US dollars range. And I want you to think that and know that that is possible for you. And this year, he's created a new innovation that's going to launch in the market. And what really is making that possible? You keep talking about how we live here now. We live in a rapid change, a lot of economic, maybe not economic growth right now, but a lot of rapid change and possibilities. And that's because we are in the 4th industrial revolution. And industrial revolution, very quickly, are just rapid advances in science, technology, and innovation that fundamentally change how we live, work, and play. And the last industrial revolution started in 1960s, 1970s with the computer and the internet. Right? So we're in an industrial revolution. And we have evidence that there's a lot of disruption going on. If you go to a censure, this will show you that in the last 5 years, there's been a 200% surge in disruptions across multiple arenas. And that was before we had Donald Trump shaking up the world with his trade war. So I'll bet you right now the disruption is 1,000%. But what is most interesting now, before the last 5 years, the disruption was only 4%. 4% to 200% to possibly 1,000%. Things are changing. And I told you that the Industrial Revolution is really boosted by technology. And the one that most of us know about is AI. And what that is doing is normally when there's an industrial revolution, the change and the productivity would have really taken a few decades, and we've seen it's all happening very quickly, because the amount of productivity that is possible. And all this disruption provides opportunity for you in your small business to get up to really grow. And maybe for those large, established, slow organizations, all this disruption and chaos is a danger to them. But for you, as we saw in the video and with Alden Wayne, this really is an opportunity. Because 30, 40 years ago, a small player with a small team couldn't compete with those multinationals. And I want you to know the paradigm has shifted, the barriers are falling, and anything is possible in this new changed and global world. But what is innovation? If I was to ask all of you, what exactly is innovation? I would get maybe 20 different definitions. But fortunately, the ISO standard has that. When we when we talk about innovation, we really talk about an outcome of something, an outcome of a process. So you have an innovation in a phone and something. So the definition is it's a new or changed entity that's realizing or redistributing value. And that entity doesn't have to be a product. It could be a service, it could be a business model, it could be a method. That's what you could change or create something new of. And the value does not necessarily have to be financial. It could be acquiring knowledge, it could be intellectual property, it could be just having a strategic advantage. So this is what innovation is. So now that we get that out of the way, we have quite a few misconceptions. Most people think that innovation is a straightforward process. Once I have an idea, I can immediately create a product. But that is not true. There's a lot of experimentation, there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of iteration. So let you to tell yourself that you have a journey ahead of you, and once you're trying to innovate. Another thing when you hear about innovation, I know, of course, I spoke about technology just now, but it's much more than that. It's testing ideas, collecting evidence, learning about customers, and killing your ideas at an early stage. If you're not doing these things and just focusing, I have a brand new technology, all these bells and whistles, you have something that the customers will not want and will not be successful in the market. And you know, that's misconception, and I see all the time is that people don't just talk about that there are different levels of innovation. So normally, a lot of times when people talk about innovation in Trinidad, sometimes they really are talking about Horizon 1, this area in red, which is incremental innovation, which is okay to have. But to really be a game changer, to really have a growth engine that could scale, you really want to have the green horizon, 3 disruptive innovations. And you can put it in the chat here and let me know how many of you have ideas that you think could be disruptive innovation within this category, like Alwyn Way. The last disruptive innovation that the disruptive innovation that most of us could think of when we come to Trinidad is the creation of the steel pan all those decades ago. And we want to make sure everyone understands the innovation processes and uses this ISO system so that we don't have one every few decades, but we have multiple disruptive innovations that are being created. And this here is the innovation standard. So most people, when they talk about innovation processes, they think of this area in green here, right? Which is you have an idea and you create, and you're looking to create it into a new product or service. But what most people don't talk about, what do we mean by having an innovation context? You want to have leadership, you want to have innovation support, you want to be evaluating our whole system. So you become a serial innovator. You have multiple ideas being developed. And this is another view of the system, of the standard. Now, here you'll see what the innovation processes that have been fleshed out. We're talking about identifying opportunities. We have idea, creating concepts, validating the concept, developing the solutions, and deploying the solutions. This is the innovation process, so you could track the process of where your idea has reached in developing it. So, and if you notice, you see a lot of, in the center, there are a lot of arrows going back because it's an iterative process. And at the heart and the backbone of the ISO 6001 are these 8 innovation management principles, and ask yourself within your organization, within yourself even, do you have these innovation management principles? Of course, realizing value explains itself. Are you a future-focused leader? Do you encourage persons within your organization to be future-focused, to be creative, to be full of curiosity, to take risks? Do you have a strategic direction, a large strategic direction, like Mr. Alwyn Way with his WP? He knew that he wanted to not just conquer the Caribbean, and he's the number 1 platform in the Caribbean in his space, but we see him, he has a strategic direction for the world. He's in West Africa, he's in America, he's in Latin America. And we need more of you SMEs to be thinking of that level of growth. Of course, the right innovative culture, are you exploiting insights? Are you managing uncertainty? Do you have adaptable structures? Do you have a systems approach? Of course, systems approach is this standard. So moving on, I thought I should touch in a little bit more detail on the generic processes. As I said, this is the heart of the ISO 6000, where you have an idea. Remember, this whole process is you transforming your idea into a new product and service. So are you open to the changes and the trends that are impacting you? That's when they identifying opportunities, right? Do you have that skills? Are you open to change? Do you know how to create concepts and create a prototype? Do you have the ideation skills? After you identify the opportunity, do you have the ideation skills within your team to create the concepts and multiple versions of it? And when you go now, you test those concepts and test those prototypes. And again, do you have the skill to even create prototypes and create concepts within your team? These are the type of things that you need to be asking yourself. And then develop the solution, which of course is a self-explanatory, and deploying and scaling solution. The question is, if you're not scaling your solution, are you really innovating? That's a question for me, because many times people, they do all these steps, whether they know they will follow these steps or not, but they are not really successful in deploying and scaling. And scaling is important for the SMEs, because you don't want to just remain small. You really want to have that opportunity for growth. Right? So these are the things. And if you have more than one idea that you're working on, you could have a conversation with your with your team and with your stakeholders that with this idea that I'm working on is on stage 3 or stage 4 or stage 5, right? So you could manage a portfolio of ideas if you have more than one. But this is the type of conversation that you could start to have. And you know, many times people, when they're working with ideas, they want to rush to do a business plan. And a business plan is when you have removed all the uncertainty, you have done all your experiments, and you know exactly the environment that you're facing. But there are other tools that you should be using before you do a business plan. And the business model canvas is one of them. I'm assuming most people know of it. Any business is just made up of 9 parts. But the business model canvas is one of several tools that you need to be looking at, because you're really working on and developing your ideas. And this is a one-page document. So moving on quickly, this is the only thing I'm just touching on in terms of the different parts of the innovation standard, especially for those more mature SMEs. So when we say innovation leadership, say, well, my SME, my company, we have innovation leadership, no problem. Do you have a mandate for innovation? Do you have a policy? If one of your team members has an idea, do they know what they need to do and what they need to go to? Do you even have an innovation strategy, which is which frontline technologies do you want to use with you in that space? Which customer segments do you want to do? Are you actively managing your innovation culture? Do you even know what to manage an innovation culture? And of course, do you have someone within your organization, within your SME, who has the roles and responsibilities and the authority for managing innovation? So I just wanted to touch very quickly on that. And wrapping up, I don't know how I'm doing for time. Right? So these are just some of the benefits of the standard for SMEs, right? So most times, most SMEs, they rely on ad hoc or informal innovation. It's just happening. No one's talking about, well, with this idea, we reach stage 2 or stage 3, we have now tested the concept. Let's say I have this idea that I'm working on. You can ensure that you have the processes in place to help scale your ideas. Make sure you have proper resources. If you have a few ideas or concepts that you're working on, you want to make sure and focus that you're focusing on the ideas with the highest potential or that reach further along. And of course, the collaboration and culture is self-explanatory. And so and if you do go the stage of trying to get certified, of course, it will improve your credibility and funding access. And we are hoping and we're expecting that many large organizations will start to get with the ISO 56001, and that will allow you to have those strategic partnerships and speak the same language with them. But there's a caveat, there's a warning. If you're an early stage startup, you should not seek to really implement a full innovation management system. Use it as a guide. Use it as a guide. Use it to help you with your idea management. Use it to help you with your risk management. Use it to help you focus on your feedback loop and things of that nature. So this is very quickly just that you know that besides the ISO 56001, there are a range of documents to assist you. If you want to know what more details on how to manage opportunities and ideas, how to form an innovation partnership, the innovation assessment, there are different documents to assist you. And just very quickly, a bit of background in innovation, information in National Innovation Standard. The National American Committee for Innovation Management at the Bureau of Standards is made up of a bunch of organizations from the country, a wide diverse group. we Innovation Association, we chair from the private sector. There's not everyone, there's just many key players. We have TTMA, we have TTCSI, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have Agostini Group. From academia, we have 2 departments from UWI, we have UTT, we have the University of the Southern Caribbean, who all contributed and decided to make this the national innovation standard. And we have, well, Export TT, well now, Global TT, Kariri, NIHERST, MIC National Flour Mills. So we have quite a lot of major organizations in the country who are on board with this, and we hope that it could spur us to get more persons in the discipline of innovation management. And so just know that with the standard, innovation, not just a word anymore, is really something that you could put into specific practice, but it requires support and resource and the capacity to do the same. So how do I join the Innovation Association? We have different tiers of membership. If you are for organizations and for persons, if you want to come as an individual, it's just $600 a year, and we could share in the slides, you'll get more details on this. So thank you very much, and please look for us on LinkedIn, and we would give to get more information on the Innovation Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and to get a committee of persons who are skilled in the ISO 56001 and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emerson, for that insightful presentation. We will now open the floor for a few questions. So please feel free to raise your virtual hand or type in the chat if you have a question for Emerson.
Emerson, can I take one?
Yes.
Yeah. So great presentation. Thanks so much. I noticed that you said don't, if you're SME, don't adopt the entire framework. What would your recommendation in terms of like first steps for small organizations who want to pursue something like this?
No, small organizations should use develop the full standard. The early stage startups. The early stage
startups. Sorry,
yeah,
my apologies.
Yeah. So
what would be steps for early stage startups?
Yeah, so I would say for sure, of course, the kind of innovation management principles, it's a first step, but the heart of the innovation processes, looking at the innovation processes from identifying opportunities, creating the concepts, testing the concepts, developing solutions, and deploying and scaling the ideas. That's really the heart of where an early stage startup should focus on. Right? Other things they could focus on, especially when starting to develop, is ensuring that they have the leadership commitment for innovation and they have a strategic direction. So those are the parts that, and of course, the right culture to ensure that all the persons in their team are willing to have that sense of curiosity and willing to share ideas. But I said the heart of it would be those innovation processes. And also for early stage startups too, I spoke of the supporting documents. For sure, for sure, the innovation partnerships. Because going into partnerships with others, many times people don't think of things like intellectual property and who own the rights for different things. You just go and think and think of those things. There's a supporting document for that. There's a whole document on intellectual property in terms of when you're developing an idea, what the things that you should be making note of before you even go to an intellectual property attorney, kind of note you should be thinking of. And we have 2 examples of that, unfortunately, in the country where people didn't know how to have proper innovation, partnerships and IP. We have, of course, the PAN. We see that Winston Spree-Simon is the creator of the steel pan, but how much revenue did he get really from that steel pan? How much license fees did he get? The other example we have is the creation of those balloon men. I can't remember the name of the great pan person in the creative sector. I don't know if you can help me. He created the balloon men. He got the contract Trinidadian to develop it for the Olympics. I think it was in 1996. But because he didn't understand innovation partnerships, because he didn't understand intellectual property, because he didn't have a systematic approach, the engineer we hired went on his own and registered the patents. And that could have been millions of US dollars in revenue for Trinidad and Tobago, even if he didn't manufacture it. So that's where the SME should really have that focus. Early stage startups, sorry. Any other questions?
I see one in the chat.
Yeah, there's one in the chat from Darian. Does the Innovation Association of TNT provide training for persons/businesses interested in learning more about the National Innovation Standard?
So right now, what we have is a community of practice. So next month, we'll start having every 2 weeks, all members will be on a Friday lunchtime. We'll have multiple discussions discussing our key issues in the innovation ecosystem and innovation standard. And that's where we are starting now. But we do intend to have training and webinars to educate people on the National Innovation Standard.
Okay, thank you, Emerson. Are there any further questions for Emerson before we move on to the next presentation? All right, so we also have opportunity for lots of questions during the panel discussion. So we'll now move on to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Mr. Leslie Leafook, Director of AI, Automation and Analytics at NIHERST Services. Leslie is a name of a legend in the business world. His revolutionary digital transformation strategies and expert knowledge are unrivaled, making him one of the most sought-after figures on Caribbean shores. His career spans over 20 years with experience in analytics, robotic process automation, and artificial intelligence. Typically serving enterprise and government customers, he aspires to create a globally competitive region using data, which positively impacts every Caribbean life. He was also named an honorary speaker at the Caribbean Telecommunications Union Prime Minister's Summit, which amassed over 100 leaders from across the region. Leslie believes that we all someday will become data citizens. He hopes to tap into the deeply creative nature of our Caribbean people so we can foster development in a community that's highly sought after for its talent and expertise, transforming us into the India for analytics. Mr. Leafook will be presenting Future-Proofing Small Businesses, Navigating AI and Sustainable Tech in Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome Mr. Leafook.
Morning, everybody. How are you guys doing? Can you guys hear me? Give me a quick 1 in the chat if you guys could hear me. Give me a 2 if you can't hear me. I don't expect any 2s. Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you guys. So first off, let me just make sure. All right, cool. Beautiful. So I absolutely love doing events on a Saturday. I'll tell you guys why. So Joanna and I were speaking just before the event started off, and she shared with me the registration numbers and stuff. And I said, Joanna, the expectation normally, guys, is about 20% show up. And Joanna, if you look at the numbers, that's exactly what we got. And I know this because, guys, life is patterns, right? So Emerson shared a lot of things, but really the study, the frameworks all behind that stuff is based on stuff that's already happening all around us. And when you look at the people that attend these types of sessions, if you look at successful people, they always do what they say they're going to do. And that's very normal for this audience, right? So that's why you guys are here. And that's why I want to do something very, very special for you guys. So before we move forward, I want you guys to give yourselves a big round of applause for being here. Guys, let me see a little round of applause in the chat for you guys who are here. I love that. So I'll do something very special for you guys. Now, I usually ask people like, why do they attend these sessions? And ultimately it boils down to one thing. They realize, guys, that there's always a next level. They want to be able to get there faster, right? There are a lot of people in this world that are complacent. They're okay with doing the mundane, but that's not you guys, because you guys are innovators. So I'm happy to share some interesting stuff. You see, the thing when it comes to AI today is that most people have pieces of the puzzle, but they don't have the entire picture. And by the end of the session today, I want to give you guys the entire picture. Is that cool? Give me a little cool in the chat if that's cool. Now, I don't know how many of you guys here present How many guys here present to audiences and stuff? Anybody here presents to audiences or gives talks or has to do presentations? Anybody here? So what I want to ask you guys is, I want you to treat this session like the same way you'd want your audience to be, right? So I want you guys to switch on your cameras. I want you guys to engage, use the chat, ask questions, because we have a very nice small group and you guys will get more when you ask questions and you interact. And you basically going to get more to the session. So I want to invite you guys, Jillian, Emerson, Lorenzo, Crystal, Celicia, Renato, Kalisha, Wynette. Hey, Wynette, how you doing? Kiyomi, Laverne, Katrine, Natalie, Tyrone, Candice, Darian. Guys, switch on your cameras. Let's have a little conversation today. I'm not here to just talk down to you guys. So for today's session, I want to be able to not just talk about AI. I want you guys to experience AI. So in the chat, give me an idea that you might be working on as an innovator. Put an idea in the chat. Or if you guys want to, you can pull out your phone and test this out yourself. And you guys notice, every time you pull out your phone with me, guys, I do months of work for you guys. Hi, Jillian, morning. All right, cool. So give me an idea of one product, one service that you guys might be working on right now that you want to be able to launch. And what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to help you guys get there a little faster. Obviously using what? Using AI. Give me a product or service. Let me see if I could find my thingy. PDT. Oh, here we go. MKT. All right, one sec. Sorry, guys. My browser died on me. All right, consultant services, labels for value. Thanks, Risha. I put it in. So for the folks that did scan, what you guys are going to see is something like this. Right? So cool. So I'll grab Risha's idea. So consultant services. All right, here we go. All right, so that's Risha. Cool. So what does he promise for AI today? Ultimately, it's hyper personalization. So immediately we could start personalizing the stuff. Jillian says counseling services. So I'll do both of you guys. Now, for privacy reasons, I'll just use my email. Say I'm not going to share you guys emails openly like this. Cool. Right, nice. So I'll put that product idea inside here. So this was consulting services. Jillian says counseling services. So I'll also run that for you guys. All right, beautiful. Right, I like those good cooking shows, guys. We'll come back to that in a little bit. All right, love it. So guys, what are we going to cover today? Firstly, I want you guys to know that and guys, take as much notes as you can. I want you guys to retain as much out of today's session as possible. You have 3 experts here. It's, you're going to be able to pick our brains, but ultimately we want to be able to help you save some time. Now, there are 3 types of work in this world. There is guesswork, right? Put in the chat, guesswork, right? And then the second type of work that we have is what? Is hard work. Put it in the chat, hard work. And the last type of work are frameworks. So I love the fact that Emerson shared a framework. Because what are frameworks? Frameworks are parts that people have already developed the hard way, and they just throw away the stuff that's not working and they keep the good stuff so that you guys could get predictable results. So I want to share with you guys a framework that we've developed with the very, very early adopters. Basically, the large banks, the Canadian banks, the insurance companies, the telcos, the early adopters of AI. Because guys, if you look at what other people have done, you can learn from their mistakes and you could get there faster. So what is that framework? It's the English Intelligence Framework. And today I just scratch on level 1. Level 1 is critical. And if you get level 1, it changes every single thing about your organization. What's so important about this, guys? Let me know in the chat, what is the biggest concern for most people when it comes to AI today? Put it in the chat, guys. What's the biggest concern for everybody when it comes to AI today? What do you guys think? Safety, privacy. Richard has an advanced concern. Chris has an advanced concern. The first concern when people who haven't even started on that AI, that's right, Kalisha. It's taking jobs. It's replacing their jobs. That's right, Jonathan. That's the first concern that everybody has today. And that's because they don't have consciousness. They don't understand exactly what AI will do in the future, and they're concerned about their own personal future. Very, very normal. So what we're going to do is focus on this today, but I have a whole workshop around this stuff. Ultimately, guys, seeing that we were spending a couple minutes together, would it be okay if I shared a little bit about my background, some of the mistakes that I made, and basically how I got here? Would that be okay? Would that be cool? All right. Thanks, Julian. Appreciate you. So most people today, when they see me with CEOs, prime ministers, presidents, captains of industry, sometimes celebrities. I don't know if do I have any Beanie Man fans here today? Or sometimes with celebrities. The reality is this, guys, is that it was not always like this. And there are the 4 letters that have haunted me for a very, very, very long time. And those 4 letters are COXX. It makes me uncomfortable to talk about it. But what COXX is actually my A-level results. You see, guys, and I don't want any laughing. I see James' eyebrow jumped up, right? Guys, I got a C in GP, which means I know a little bit about the world. I got an O in chemistry, which means I didn't learn anything in 2 years. And I got 2 X's, right? X in biology and X in math. Most people don't even know you could get an X. I got 2, right? And I share these very embarrassing results with you guys is to say, I didn't even do computer studies at school. I suck at math. But most people, they think you need to be a data scientist. You need to be good at math. You need to be able to code and program to be successful with AI. The reality is that's not the case, guys. So ultimately, I want to share like how we've been able to get there super, super fast with you guys. Is that cool? Is that cool, guys? You don't need to be a data scientist to be successful with AI. Give me in fact, guys, if you're not a data scientist, put me in the chat. Because this presentation is not for data scientists. Cool. But I believe, right? And my son might agree with me, I'm an innovative thinker. And I think that's why you guys are here. Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. So for the folks, give me a 1 if you are already using AI. Give me a 2 if you're not using AI yet. I just want to get a sense of where you guys are at. Okay. Cool. I love it. And I knew that was going to be the answer, guys, because most people here have already started with AI. But that's all right. For the folks who have not started yet, I'll break it down. So for the folks that have, what is AI? Let me know in the chat. What is AI for you? And I'll tell you how I think about AI. So think about AI is a tool. I love that, Jonathan, right? I love that. So when I think about AI, I think about it exactly like that, but a little more. So for me, AI is not just a tool. I think about AI like, especially as a small business, AI is the best employee that you could ever hire. It's an employee that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They don't get sick. They don't have bad days. They don't call the union. It's an employee that is never going to forget. You don't have to repeat yourself. It's an employee that is, is an employee that is, the scary one is adaptable and flexible. What do I mean by that? When we have tough questions in life, guys, where do we go? When you have a tough question in life, what do you guys do? Chances are, let me see in the chat. What do you guys do? Let's see. Ask ChatGPT. That's because Joanne is a alpha, right? Ask Copilot. Yeah, Google it, Kalisha. That's what we all do. We Google it. And the AI that exists today, guys, it's trained on the same information that Google has. So it knows everything. So it is crazy. And that's what makes this technology so different from everything else that we've seen before. It has broad capabilities. It knows the exact same things that Google does. It's also very easy to use. For the folks that are here, have you done a formal class on AI? Probably not. Now, I'm not saying Googling in the platforms is the best way to get results, but I'm saying that even if that's all you do, you go ask it, give me a list of blah, blah, blah. It's going to give you half decent results. So everybody could use this stuff. And more than that, guys, put in the chat, what is the price that you pay every single month for the AI? What is the price that you guys pay? 0. That's it. It's free. Now, there's a cost and there's a price. The cost, obviously, the price is 0, but the cost is what? You guys know this. When something is free online, who's the commodity? Who's the commodity? Me. And that's ultimately because they want your data. So there's a real cost attached to this stuff. That's just the price. Yeah, the user. That's right. So some people ask, like, how smart is this stuff? So in November of 2022, guys, they relaunched ChatGPT and they use a model called GPT 3.5. This is November 2022. At the top here, you'll see a couple of exams. The third one down is the uniform bar exam. It's the exam that some people in the US take to become lawyers. So when ChatGPT was first launched, which is really where most of the world kind of started to think about AI, ChatGPT sat this uniform bar exam and it scored in the bottom 10th percentile. Bottom 10th percentile. It sucked. It was a terrible lawyer. 5 months later, right, GPT-4 was launched and they sat the exam again, and now it became in the top 90th percentile of all lawyers. 5 months. Basically, most people take 5 years to become lawyers. It took AI 5 months. This is old news, guys. If we look at where we are today with AI is already performing at the PhD levels. And I know I have at least one PhD in the audience. How long did it take you to get your PhD? Right? A couple of years. The reality is this, though, is because these tools are now free and available to everybody. Now we have access to PhD intelligence just by putting our hands in our pockets and pulling out our phones. So the reality is this, guys, is that highly skilled, highly creative jobs that took a really, really long time to train for, they're being disrupted. We used to think that it was low-level jobs that would go first. It's actually the other way around. So I share all this stuff to say that because this stuff is so intelligent, there are immediate opportunities. I will just share one with you guys today because I only have about 20 minutes and we have a lot to go through in terms of the agenda. But I want to share with you guys operational excellence. So for the folks that shared that idea a little earlier, let's say, and let's see who it was. So who are those folks at Risha, right? Sophia. So Sophia shared an idea. Sophia, is it okay? Or Adam, is it okay if I used your stuff, guys? Maybe Sophia. Sophia, is it okay if I use your stuff? Yes? Okay, cool. Sophia, you wanted to launch a product, right? What was that product you wanted to launch? Let me see here. Here we go. All right. So you wanted to launch poultry. That's right, Sophia. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, cool. So Sophia, let's say you wanted to launch a poultry business. The first thing you need to do is you need to probably identify who your target customer is. You need to go to do some research for your particular poultry product. Who are you going to serve? How long does it take you guys to do research? Identify your ideal customer, develop an ideal customer persona. How long does that take you guys? And this is relevant to each and every one of you guys because probably you will have a product in the future that you want to launch. How long will it take you guys? A little bit, right? To go do the research, collect the data. After you do that, you come up with an ideal customer persona. After you do that, what do you need to do? You need to identify the problems that audience has that your product solves. What are the solutions? You come up with a marketing plan. You'll do creatives. Typically stuff that would take months of work, teams of people, arguably a couple $1,000s. Well, that's what we've been able to do for Sophia. So Sophia, your poultry product, here it is, right? So here's a customer persona, 30 to 45, female, suburban areas, right? A job title. So she's looking for health and wellness stuff, or she's a health and wellness coach. She wants new forms of poultry. Her pain points: difficulty finding high quality, sustainable poultry options, concern about environmental impact of poultry, because we're here to talk about sustainability, right? She's worried about transparency in food sourcing, production. Here are the communication channels that you reach on. Here are her fears, right? Contributing to environmental degradation, concern about health implications, doubts, frustrations, identity. Here are the problems. Here are the solutions. Here's a Facebook ad that you guys have crafted, right? Here's the image that you've already done, right? Cool. I want to buy these chickens. How many of you guys want to buy this chicken, right? It looks so good, right? It's a SWOT analysis, competitive landscape matrix, marketing plans, STP marketing model, BCG matrix, implementation tactics. Here's your customer journey for each step so you could have targeted communications for her. Here's a sample email that you use to outreach to her. So we did that for Sophia. We did that for Risha. We did that for every single other person that contributed the ideas. And we did it 3 times. Like each one of these assets would, as a small business, how long would it take you? Because small businesses, you are the ones that actually have to do all this stuff, right? The reality is you can't afford large teams to do it. And AI is becoming potentially the biggest equalizer on the planet. Guys, are you guys getting this? Give me a 1 if you guys are getting this. All right, cool. So for the folks that submitted their ideas, Adam, the stuff should be in your inbox in a couple of minutes. And Sophia, Risha, all that stuff is there for you guys. And I shared it to say, guys, it's not about, because I've shared with you guys a marketing process. It's not about marketing. Because AI understands every single thing out there, it's marketing, HR, finance, operations, IT, risk, legal, government, hospitality, education, poultry, every single thing on the planet, because AI understands all of this stuff. And that's why I believe, guys, that the workforce of the future will look like this. That you will have a business someday, and when you come to the office, there'll be more AI than people. And I know this is because this is already what my organization looks like. It looks like this since 2021. The reality is this, guys, is that they're ultimately the two paths to AI. There's an elite group of individuals that are looking for every edge, every opportunity, every chance to integrate AI into all aspects of their operations. These organizations are the disruptors, and they will dominate. They will dominate the market. The other category of people are doing things in the same old way. And they wake up, all their customers are going to be gone. And so Emerson talked about some of these things a little earlier, but the reason for this is, guys, is because of the first movers advantage. So everybody's familiar with first mover advantage. When you think about first movers, you think about companies like Coke, like Kellogg's, like Amazon. Who is second in the market to Coke today, guys? Put it in the chat. Who is second in the market to Coke today? Let me know. Pepsi. That's right. Now, in the chat, give me a C if you drink Coke. Give me a P if you drink Pepsi. And I know somebody's going to put W for water, right? But that's all right. That's right. Look at the chat, guys. Nobody drinks Pepsi, and they're second in the market. First movers dominate it, right? People in Trinidad only drink Pepsi if it comes free with a KFC, right? You guys know this. First movers will dominate the market. Now, I'll just scratch on job loss here for a second because this is everybody's concern. But the reality is this, guys. Over the next 4 years, 44% of jobs that exist today, they're no longer going to exist. And you guys see why. Because of AI, because of automation, because of hyper-automation, right? What is that going to look like, guys? I will call every other name on the screen. Adrian, Tyrone, Candice, Darian, David, Levan, Jonathan, Crystal, Lorenzo, Emerson, Joanne, James. If I did not call your name 4 years from now, the thing that you do today, the job that you do today, the thing that you did your first degree, your second degree, your PhD for, that job is no longer going to be relevant. So if you look at what governments are doing to reskill, retool, people love to compare us to Singapore because of size, right? For the folks here who are older than 40, right? The government in Singapore set up a separate fund to reskill, retrain everybody above the age of 40 because they realize 4 years from now, those jobs are not going to exist. It is wild. China, as of this year, September, they are going to do mandatory AI training for every single child. What does that mean? That means as of September, they started to train 300 million people on AI. I'll put that into perspective, guys. That's 6 times the population of every single person in the Caribbean. They will have an AI army working for them. And each person in there will have their own AI army. It is crazy. And that's why today we're seeing this big global war around AI being played out. Now, we're here to talk about innovation and stuff. And most people today, they're asking the wrong questions. Most people today are asking, how do I prompt a ChatGPT? What are the best tools out there? The reality is this, guys. If you look at innovation, if you look at intellectual property, if you look at patents, the largest companies today, which are all technology companies, by the way, all right? So one of the largest ones is a company called Tencent. Anybody familiar with Tencent? It is a large player in China. Yeah, James has, right? Tencent has 9,600 patents on how to use AI. What does that mean? They have 9,600 unique ways on using AI, while the rest of us are asking, how do I use AI for marketing? So we have a lot of catching up to do, guys. The reality is, guys, if you take nothing else out of today's session, I just want you guys to take this, is that AI is inevitable, but your relevance is a choice. The good news is this, guys, is that we live in a world where it's not the big fish that eat the small fish, right? It's the fast fish that eat the slow fish. So it's really about choice, guys. Do you want to be a fast fish or do you want to be a slow fish? Put fast fish in the chat, guys, if you want to be a fast fish, right? Put fast fish in the chat, guys. Yeah, absolutely, right? Because it's the first movers that will dominate every single thing out there. So in terms of a recap, guys, I gave you a framework that you guys would follow. Fortunately, I hope I'm able to help you spot your opportunities a little better. I hope I'm able to help you see some opportunities for your own businesses, to reimagine the way that you do not only service delivery, but you look at operational efficiency. But ultimately, guys, you also see the impact of the workforce, and I want to help you guys prepare for that stuff. So if you have time, Joanne, I want to do a little bonus for these guys. Do you have a couple, like 2 minutes, guys? Do you want a bonus? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if you guys want a bonus, I want to see like 32 me's in the chat. If not, I'll skip it. Let's see. I want to make sure you guys are there. All right, that's cool, guys. So the reality is this, guys, is AI, it's not going to replace you, but it's the people that use AI will, right? You guys are here. It's a Saturday morning. You registered whenever you registered for the event. You showed up for the event and you're sticking around for the presentations. And that means, guys, not only that you want to take things up to the next level, that means you're dedicated to getting there. So I want to give you guys the full picture. And you're probably thinking, like, how do I stay ahead of the curve? So, guys, I mentioned a whole workshop that goes through all of these things. And I want to give you guys some seats to the workshop. All right. I usually charge $250 for the workshop. I'm going to give you guys 10 seats. Right. So it's for the fast fish. I want to see who the fast fish, guys. So pull out your phones, give it a quick scan, and I'll see you guys in my next workshop. All right. There you go. All right. Thanks so much, guys. You guys have been fantastic.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for that inspiring story and for your forward-thinking perspective. I'm sure we got a little energy boost and there may be lots of questions. So we will open the floor for about 3 questions and then we'll move on to the next presenter and then save the rest of questions for the panel discussion.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
So I'm seeing Alicia has a question already. How can we detect and filter out AI hallucinations in our research?
Okay, cool. So I see a couple things. Thanks so much. So Risha says, I missed the QR code. That's because, guys, it was for the fast fish. I'm just kidding. Let me put it back up for you guys. Here you go. Go ahead and scan. So how could I detect and filter out AI hallucinations in your research? Great question. And I love the fact that you're identifying that it does hallucinate. What's hallucinations, guys? AI makes stuff up, right? So it's key, guys, is that when people start using AI for the first time, they get really, really smart. So for the first 2 weeks of using AI, you become the smartest person in the room. But if you're not using AI properly, you start to get dumb really, really fast. How do you guys do that? How do you continue being smarter? Is that you need to be the human in the middle. You need to fact check the AI. You need to check cross references. You need to look at citations to make sure it's not making things up. But when you understand at the core of what the technology is doing, it's basically, and I say basically, right? But it's predictive text on steroids. So the stuff that you're going to get back, it sounds extremely confident, but it can be completely inaccurate. So you need to fact check. You need to check citations. Do your own validation of the information that you're receiving. Is that cool? Alicia, great question.
Any other questions? You can also raise your hand and we will unmute you if you'd like to speak.
Devendra says the faster fish got it. Yes, Devendra, that's right. All right, no problem, guys. I'll be sticking around for the panel, and I'm sure you guys will have tons of questions then. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you again, Leslie. So next on the agenda, we have Mr. Lorenzo Hodges. Lorenzo is an award-winning innovation strategist, experienced designer, business executive, and educator. He equips business leaders, teams, and organizations to rethink the future and to build innovation capacity for sustainable business growth. He is the CEO and Chief Innovation Officer at Plain White Table Incorporated, an innovation strategy firm delivering solutions and innovation strategy formulation, innovation management, innovation culture transformation, new product and service design, and customer experience design. As an educator, Lorenzo lectures in master's programs at 3 universities and business schools. He teaches in the areas of innovation leadership, corporate innovation and entrepreneurship, digital transformation, digital marketing and e-commerce, design thinking, and product development. Lorenzo is actively involved in youth development and is the coordinator of the Northgate College Male Empowerment Initiative. He is also a former fitness trainer and Latin dance teacher. Mr. Hudge will be presenting Designing Tomorrow, Strategies for Innovation and Customer Delight. Let's welcome Mr. Hudges.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Joanne. I want to quickly commend both Emerson and Leslie for really starting things off at a wonderful pace. And we seem to be climbing. I hope I can maintain the pace that these gentlemen have established for the morning. They have certainly fired me up. And hopefully I could in fact do justice to the atmosphere that they have created. I'll present for a bit, and as Joanne said, at the end, we could have some questions. My aim today really is to stimulate some thought, because innovation really gets triggered by the mindset that you have. If you have the wrong mindset, then you will not create new value. And so I'm glad Emerson would have established good definitions for innovation at the beginning. My talk, and I'm going to quickly share my screen, so I trust this will be up very quickly. And you should be seeing at the moment. Okay. So we're talking about designing tomorrow, strategies for innovation and customer delight. And I'm going to share some personal experiences and give some other examples as we go along. But I think I'm going to be coming from a place of having interacted with business leaders and executives over decades, understanding their concern, but also having a particular view of the future. And so first thing I want to establish is that the future really favors those who design and build it. All right. If you don't design it and build it, then someone else will, based on their design or their preferred set of principles and options. Design really is about solving problems elegantly, and that's how I generally describe design in the context of innovation. Again, that's solving problems elegantly, finding great ways in which to deliver value to others such that they will consume it and receive it delightfully. But innovation itself does not happen by chance, and Emerson did a really good job of establishing this fact, which is why he spoke about having a clear framework that's delivered through the ISO 56000 standard for making innovation real inside of small businesses. But what we see over time, as we reflect on the future, let's take a look back. What we have been seeing trend-wise is that business longevity is actually in decline. There was some research that was done years ago, and it's projected that business longevity will fall to 12 years by the year 2027. And that's compared to 33 years ago, 33 years, which was the estimated amount of time that businesses would last back in 1964 terms. And so what we've been seeing is over time, the longevity of business continues to be reduced. And that means that the circumstances that businesses have to exist in is threatening and is causing complexity. And it is more and more challenging to go forward if you don't innovate and innovate well. And so we do recognize, and many theorists have spoken about the fact that the road ahead is complex and uncertain. And you would have heard of a VUCA world or VUCA world, depending on how you want to pronounce it, right? But there is complexity and uncertainty ahead and surprises. So the things that you may think about and project into the future and assume that will continue to trend forward does not have to trend forward, because the fact is that tomorrow literally changes overnight, right? Literally and figuratively, it changes overnight. And so I like to reflect back to my own time on the 1st of March, 2020. I took on the seat as the chief executive officer of one of the Caribbean's largest and leading eyewear companies. Right? We sold glasses and contact lenses, and we had our own manufacturing and so on. And so on the 1st of March, 2020, I took on that role at the helm and was all excited and gung-ho to build. We had resources, we had capital, good funding, we had a team, we were capable, we were growing, and we had plans from day one about how we'll begin to transform and continue on the growth path that we would. Again, this was on March 1st, 2020. That was a Monday. By the next week, on the 11th of March, 2020, the pandemic was declared. And that threw everything into a tailspin. And so what we thought tomorrow looked like suddenly changed. And that required a new age of agility to be able to deal with the way in which tomorrow comes. Your companies have to become agile muscles that could navigate a terrain that you don't know what it looks like. It's very different if you're doing road running. And so if you're accustomed to growing over time and you're a road runner, yep, there's a straight path and it's pretty predictable. You can see far ahead. But if you are a trail runner, the context changes. And so businesses today have to become trail runners to deal with the changing circumstances that you could be running around trees and not be able to see around bends, and the terrain is undulating, and you have to be able to quickly adapt to what is coming before you. As we speak, it was just announced, for example, the United States, Moody's would have downgraded their credit rating. And we've seen that a decision by a single leader in the world can cause the loss of trillions of dollars on the stock exchange, can trigger impacts on inflation or interest measures and so on across the globe. There are things that could be changing. That itself causes anxiety. And so as we're thinking about customer delight, we have to be thinking about the environment within which our customers exist and how things are changing around them and how things are getting more and more uncomfortable. So while for you, it may be business as usual, the customer that you're serving has evolving concerns because the environment around them is not as comfortable as it may have been in the past. And that requires a certain kind of sensitivity because of the environment that they face. You have to be sensitive to the anxiety that they face and the psychological impact on them. So when they come to your doors to do business with you, there is a way in which you are required to nurture them and to take care of them. And so in that context, focusing on customer delight is key to your innovation strategy and to your business success. Customer delight really is the emotional, psychological pleasure and satisfaction that your customers feel when they interact with you. That's the the gold star, the North Star that you're going after, that when you organize your business to innovate and be relevant for the future, to serve these very customers that have all kinds of challenges that they face today and new challenges that will emerge tomorrow, you have to design for customer delight. And the way I describe it is simply this: you have to design for hope. Design for hope and put in place some strategies that could help you to deliver hope to your customers, that when they touch you, when they touch your services, your products, when they experience all of the value that you've put a lot of work into, that they could have a sense of hope. But hope in this case really is part of a series of strategies and a structure and framework that I want to muse on over the next few minutes and leave you with something that you can build inside of your organization and inside of your team. So hope is about harmonize, organize, personalize, and empathize. Let's walk through these one by one in simple form. So the first thing, when we talk about harmonize, right? You want to be omni-channel and to unify the experience for your customers across all of the channels that you have. And that means that you want to have one cohesive, seamless experience for your customers. Your company should not have a split personality, right? Have one personality across all channels. Have you ever encountered a business, and I can't see the chat now and I won't stop to try to see it because I'm mindful of time, but have you ever had an experience where you're talking to a company on one channel? Let's say you talk to someone on the phone and you call, and they give you a set of instructions, and then you go into that business, and at that business, then you have to repeat everything you said on the phone and almost start over the conversation. It's like, but I spoke to you yesterday. I told you yesterday. And so let me give you examples of what that might look like in the context I came from inside of the pandemic, running an eyewear company. In our case, we had clients who would send messages through social media. So that's one channel. And they'll raise concerns. I want to make a booking, or I want to know the price of something, or I had a problem with a particular thing. And they may get one response there, but then if they call on the phone or use our WhatsApp channel, which is separate from social media, they were actually talking to someone different. And our messaging on social media, the way in which we told our story, the personality behind and tone behind those messages was different from the one that was delivered by WhatsApp. And that was different from the one that they would have faced when they saw someone greeting them at the store. And so we had to look at how do we harmonize and make this thing simpler and more delightful, okay? And so it's important to know that fragmented experiences frustrate your customers. They think, oh my gosh, but I have to say this again and again and again. And in our case, we started innovating around that by becoming more omni-channel and unifying our services and the way we delivered it. So the team in marketing that formerly handled social media and the team in customer service that handled emails and other things were working together, and they had a shared view of the customer, a single view of the customer. And we had customers who tested us. Not that they knew what we were doing, but funny story, there's a customer who sent us a message on WhatsApp, on social media, and then 30 seconds later sent the same message on WhatsApp, and the message on WhatsApp was, I've been trying to reach you all morning. It has been several hours and no one has responded to me. Unfortunately, because we were in omnichannel mode, the team that was handling WhatsApp had seen the customer's message 30 seconds before. Now they didn't react and out the customer. They were polite and they said, oh yes, this, okay. Well, let me get onto this for you immediately and start addressing this. The point here is, if you can begin to shift your business towards an omni-channel model where it doesn't matter where the customer enters from or encounters you from or touches your service, whichever touch point it is, you have the ability to upgrade the experience for their customer so that for them, there's a sense of immediacy around the service and their delight level goes up. So begin to restructure your organization to take that into consideration and find ways in which to delight them. Too many companies have disparate channels that are not coordinated and not synchronized. Go after harmony. Next is organize. So you want to be able to structure your teams and organize the way your teams are structured to deliver better value to all of your customers, right? That's really important. And that means that you need to create some cross-functional teams as much as possible. So as I mentioned, we had marketing working more closely with customer service and they had shared interfaces. So we had a common view of the customer. But you also want, when innovating, looking at the problems that you face and trying to design for them. Again, design is solving those problems elegantly. You want to ensure you have the right voices in the room. The right voices have to be a part of the conversation. And what that allows for is shared insights about your customers, shared learnings from one team to the next, so that everyone gets an uplift in their own expertise. You want to have shared techniques and so on. Again, that becomes common knowledge, common practice across the organization. But that cross-functional design and organizational design is important, okay? Poor organization design, on the other hand, really reduces your productivity and adds more constraints to how agile you could be. In the context of a world where tomorrow is changing overnight, and in our case, I remember, and anyone tuned in from Trinidad and Tobago would be familiar with the phrase, as of midnight tonight, only hospitals could be open, right? Retail has to close. X number of businesses have to close. And so with a single decision, by the next day, things could change, which means you have to have the team structured in a way for agility. If you think about the human body, you have different parts, arms and legs as the extremities, and then you have a core and a torso. Everything is anchored by a backbone that allows for fluidity and movement. And so figure out your core and what that structure needs to be for your company to be agile in the way in which it could respond to customer needs. Your ability to respond to customer needs directly triggers your capacity to innovate in a timely way. So as you go about ideation processes and thinking of and leveraging AI like Leslie demonstrated, and using those tools, there's a way in which everyone could benefit from using those because the design of the organization is richer. In our case, we created something called our patient care group, and it's the first time we had a patient care group. So in the context of eyewear, you have an optometrist who does your eye exam. You have an optician who would do measurements to ensure that the prescription and everything is working and your lens and your glasses fit and it's the right size and shape for you and so on. You have customer service representatives that are guiding you and trying on frames from a style and fashion standpoint, and they drive the sale. We have marketing that is handling the messaging for the clients, and of course, buying the products that will be purchased in store. And we created a product group and a patient care group. I'll focus on the patient care group. The patient care group, in starting to talk, we discovered that in the context of the pandemic, we had clients and patients who found it difficult to come out to our brick and mortar establishment. And of course, it made sense because no one wanted to leave their homes. But in many cases, you had parents whose kids were, because they were on the screens all the time, were suddenly getting eye aches and headaches. And so those parents were concerned about their young ones. And each time before we changed our design process, they had to come in and book an appointment. and risk it all to come in to get their child's eye examined. They had no way to get answers. And so that team, our patient care group, looked at those problems and we came up with a challenge. How might we develop a service experience that reduces the risks to our customers in this time of COVID-19? And that team came together and designed the Caribbean's first dedicated telehealth service for eye care, whereby we launched our virtual care service, and a patient like that mother who is concerned about her child, a child who is having pain and difficulty, can log in and have a virtual consultation with an optometrist and get guidance on whether this needs immediate attention or whether this could be deferred for some period of time, or whether there's some home remedy that they can do temporarily until they absolutely need to come in to do an eye exam. And so if we think in the context of the light, the restructuring and the creation of that team that saw things across the board allowed us to bring the right technology. Technology was not the driver. The customer concern was the driver. So we brought the right technology. We brought the right insights from the technical experts that were on the ground that would say, yeah, but there are some legal implications that we need to consider in the context of healthcare and patient privacy and all of those things, that we were able to figure those things out together. And within a matter of weeks, launch version 1 of our virtual care service. That's innovation in action. That's triggered by a team that has customer delight in focus, but that's organized in a way that they can actually make it real. Next, personalize. So you want to tailor your products, your services, and your experiences to each customer, not just for all customers. So we often think, yep, what do we do for all? And all seems and appears efficient from the business standpoint. But in the context of customer delight, your focus can't be just the business standpoint. Your focus has to be on the customer. So you have to begin to design for one. In designing for all, you must design for each of your customers, because each of your customers doesn't care about the other customers, all right? They, from their standpoint, they're thinking, how is this thing meaningful to me? Now, the statement that you want from customers is for them to say, wow, you know me so well. You developed this just for me. So think about your experience using Netflix and Amazon and some of these services that have mastered personalization. What they've done is taken their infrastructure and adjusted it so that the thing that I see when I log into Netflix is different from what my wife sees when she logs into Netflix. Okay, very different catalog. It's the same interface, but that catalog morphs to pertain to the person. And that makes the experience mine and uniquely mine and very different from hers or anyone else's. So you have to begin to pivot and bring that personalization in and begin to innovate in that space of personalization. What would that require? That really would require a new set of customer intelligence. And you have to look at your data and look at how you are tracking what your customers need, what they're buying from you, and what their preferences are. You need to develop responsive channels that could adapt to the specific one-on-one customers as they come in. You want to create means by which you could track those preferences. Again, all with a view to designing for one. So as you have the right intelligence and responsive channels and the organization around it, you could begin to tailor those things one customer at a time. And so, for example, in our case, in eyewear, we started thinking about how do we build intelligence around customers? Are there patterns that we can see? And the statement I gave my team and challenge was, how do we sell them before they arrive? And the focus here was essentially, how do we wow them that by the time they arrive in the store, it's like they feel as if we were fully ready for them. So there are some people who like certain standard types of frames. Some like fancy, bold frames, some like simple frames, some like rimless frames. And you can tell historically what their patterns of buying is. And we can ensure that by the time you make your appointment and arrive in the store, what you get is what we know you like. And so everything, if we go back to organization, the product purchasing to ensure the inventory is there for when you get there, all of that is arranged to ensure that we could deliver on your specific need at every point in time. And we started building out the intelligence infrastructure to make that happen so that the customers could be pleased every single time. And the last example I'll give there is that of our, we would have created in the context of COVID-19, we designed inside of our, not just digital stuff, but we designed a different in-store experience. So we started creating spaces that we knew different kinds of customers would have wanted. We recognized over time that there are some customers who, when they are waiting, they come into our spaces, they wanted to be able to be productive. And so we designed cafe-style tables that were powered. So you can come and sit down, plug in your phone, plug in your laptop, plug in your tablet, and get some work done while maintaining social distancing, right? So we're thinking at the level of the customer who is coming in. Or it may be that someone came with someone else, and while that person is waiting for the patient that's being served, they could be productive at that time. We also designed private try-on booths, which was much to the delight, for example, of some of our Muslim sisters who, in order to try on your frame properly, some of them who would have their faces covered, they can't be seen by men. And so these private try-on booths allow them to sit in a comfortable private space and remove their face covering, try on their frame, look in front of a well-lit mirror, and of course, choose the best thing that suits them. That's bringing personalization down to different levels. Again, you will have different kinds of customers, but you want to be thinking, what would be meaningful to them? And lastly, the E in hope is empathize. You want to activate empathy really as an organizational and a leadership superpower. You want to develop a culture of empathy with systems for empathy. So what is empathy? Empathy is about deep understanding of someone else's need and challenge. The companies that are great at empathy do a couple of things. Firstly, they're the ones that take good care of their employees because they understand that rich employee experiences are the foundation of delightful customer experiences. So you have to have your listening eyes and ears open to tune into what are their concerns so that you could address those and innovate on that employee experience. What do you need to design to make their experience better that would cause them, when they face your customers, to bring their best selves to the game and to knock those customers' socks off? Hopefully not literally, unless you're selling shoes. Okay, and that's on the employee experience side. But on the customer experience side, you want to be listening to your customers. That allows you to identify new underserved needs or unserved needs and unmet needs. Those unmet needs and underserved needs become the source for disruption in your industry because you could begin to start to create new products, services, and experiences that significantly differentiate you from your competitors. So tune in, have conversations with your customers, find ways in which you could observe them in some cases in the spaces where they are, or observe them inside of your own business space and have conversations with them, again, to track new kinds of ideas to solve the problems that have not yet been solved. And if you could find problems that have not been solved in your industry, you could create new business lines and revenue streams, like Airbnb did, like Uber would have done, and like so many other businesses have done. That could be a key to business intelligence and success for you. So structure empathy, right? Make time, and that means leaders have to stand in a different place in how they relate to their team members, right? Empathy allows you to tune in, so that you could understand and make decisions that take into consideration the concerns of your team members. And likewise, it allows the company to take into consideration the concerns of your customers and design something better. And so that's hope for you. And the aim here is to design for hope. So harmonize, organize, personalize, and empathize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for that impactful insight. So we'll now open the floor for a couple of questions before we move on to our final speaker. Please feel free to raise your hand, type in the chat.
Lorenzo, I'll go. Is that okay?
Of course.
So terrific presentation, Lorenzo. I'm surprised I haven't seen this one because I know you for years. So terrific stuff, and I never really heard you reflect on your journey at the opticians.
Yes.
Whilst listening to your customers, what was maybe the one thing that surprised you the most that really impacted your business model and how you guys did things?
While listening, what was one of the things that would have impacted us?
Yeah, what's the thing that surprised you the most that impacted your business model? So maybe the team, maybe the organization thought a particular way about something, and then you got some feedback from the customers, because that's powerful, guys.
Oh yeah, that's
what changed.
Yeah, good question. I'll tell you. The brand that I worked for it's now a 50-year-old company. And so there's a set of assumed knowledge that you have over decades. And so the product offering that we had would have been a higher priced product offering. Enter into the pandemic, people are losing jobs, people are being laid off. And so the price point around what people are willing to pay for glasses was changing. That was confirmed by what's happening with online competition, where we saw more and more people were buying glasses online, right? From there are a number of brands that are available. And so that was a key point of listening that we had to contend with, because if your business model is built upon certain kinds of margins in how you operate, that might work for you, but then we recognize, oh, this is no longer working for a percentage of our customers. So we had to pivot on the actual product offering and then figure out how do we offer in stepping down to offer some products that are much more affordable, still high quality, but much more affordable. How do we do that in a way that allows us to still stay profitable and grow? And that was a real interesting innovation challenge. But that issue of price was a key bit of feedback that we had to soak in and muse on. I see a question from Ronaldo. Should I go ahead with it?
Yes.
John?
So I saw two questions in the chat.
Okay, you go ahead.
We'll take these two before we move on. One is from Darian. Interesting question. Why the name Plain White Table?
Plain white table. A plain white table is a surface upon which new ideas could be birthed. And so I like to think of it as a pure platform upon which new ideas could be birthed. There is no stain, there is no color that allows you to start from scratch, like a blank canvas. And that's the short version of it. But if you go into many designers' spaces, you will see they literally use plain white tables, which I discovered after the fact, right? But yeah, it's about starting from scratch. Should I go ahead with
Yes, go ahead with
question?
the final question.
All right, so his question, how would you go about getting buy-in from management to adapt to this model of thinking and product development? Don't waste your time, find a new job. I'm kidding. Getting management buy-in really is a challenge. I think to give you the shortest answer, let's look at that issue of empathy. Find the right data. Find the data that impacts business. So what are those metrics that management and leadership of the organization cares about? And what are those metrics that your customers care about? And see how the point of intersect is the thing that you have to leverage to convince management that this has to change, right? So find the intersection between what your customers are saying, which is what they need. They are one stakeholder. Your other stakeholders are the executive of the company. Find what they need and harmonize those two. The solution that you find that pleases both entities is the one that will actually get implemented.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you again, Lorenzo, for that great presentation. So we'll now move on to our final speaker, Mr. James Kahn, who's a Senior Innovation Technician at NIHERST, a lifelong aficionado and proponent of all things science. James Kahn is a leader in digital fabrication and hands-on STEM education. For over 14 years, he has been a senior innovation technician with the technical team at the NIHERST Fab Lab, where he plays a key role in developing prototypes, training educators, and mentoring the next generation of STEM enthusiasts. James has extensive training in electrical and computer engineering from Queen's University in Canada and is near completion of his Fab Academy diploma in digital fabrication from the Fab Foundation. His expertise spans designing and implementing interactive STEM projects that bridge theoretical concepts with real-world applications, with emphasis in robotics and programming, and engaging diverse age groups in innovation and science popularization. Passionate about lifelong learning, he actively collaborates with stakeholders to drive new ideas and initiatives, ensuring that STEM education remains dynamic and accessible. Mr. Kahn will be presenting from concept to creation, rapid prototyping at NIHERST Fab Lab. Please welcome Mr. Kahn.
Hi, good morning, everyone. All right, so I'm going to present somewhat quickly in order that we have enough time for a robust panel discussion at the end. All right, so I hope everyone can see my screen. Yep, that's great. All right, so as Joanne said, I am from the Fab Lab. We are here from NIHERST itself. So the good thing about that is that we are very reachable. Just contact NIHERST to any channel, that any online channels, any phone number, any person you know that works at NIHERST, and they'll tell you how to get in contact with us in case you forget to write down our email address and stuff at the end. So what's NIHERST? Joanne covered that already. That's fine. So I work at the Fab Lab. So the Fab Lab is an integrated network globally of a whole bunch of different small labs that do digital fabrication in a bunch of different areas. Each Fab Lab has some specialties, but they all have a general pool of certain equipment and skill set that you can draw from. I'm going to go into detail about a little bit of what the offerings that we have. All right. So the Fab Foundation, right, was founded by Neil Duchenfeld from MIT when initially it was the Center for Bits and Atoms. So that's just to tell you that the Fab Foundation itself, which we are part of, actually has some really incredible pedigree. So it's not some just fly-by-night little university or anything. It's one of the biggest in the world, one of the ones that are known for their innovation and their engineering worldwide. Like they are pretty much considered the best of the best. These are all the Fab Labs that are around the world. So there are a lot. I'm not expecting you to pick out any here just to show you the density in certain areas. You can see that there are some areas that are lacking, but generally lots of countries around the world have recognized a need for something like this in order to support entrepreneurs in their various endeavors when it comes to creating a product, right? And that's why we have developed one in Trinidad as well. Okay, so who is the Fab Lab for? Basically, it's for everybody. Anyone who has any interest in either developing a technical skill in manufacturing, right, especially for prototypes, or who want to actually make a brand new product for a company that they're developing themselves. All right, so we offer a bunch of different services, and I'll go through them in detail later on, right, with each slide, right? And we offer workshops to teach people how to use the machines, or to teach people how to use a certain type of software that can really enhance their skills. We allow people to come in and use our machines, right? Or to give us design files of their own, and then we make something for them, right? And we also offer a lot of advice and consultation for anyone who has a product that they want to develop, especially a prototype, right? And we help hold their hand through the whole process. So you don't have to come in with a whole lot of technical know-how and be a really skilled engineer to be able to design something from scratch that you've already worked out in your head. So the product development lifecycle tends to look like this. This is how you come up with something that you want to manufacture, want to design, want to bring to market. We help you through those first 4 stages, right? We can also point you in some direction to help with launch as well, right? But we can give you advice. Even if you don't want to use our services, we can just give you advice on each step, right? On where to look for certain types of other help that, like say you need someone to help you with a patent search to make sure that what you've come up with isn't already patented by somebody else. We could point you to the right resources and how to file a patent once you've completed your product. We can help you narrow it down when you just have a general idea. We can help you narrow it down to something more specific, right? And hone in on what your product really does and the various techniques you need to use in making it, or the various features it needs to have. All that here, we're here to hold your hand through that whole process. So what's in the lab? Besides myself and 6 other very skilled technicians, we have a whole bunch of equipment that you can use. Pictured here, I'll go through each type and adjust a bit, right? But we are constantly adapting and changing what we have. Once a new technology comes out that is not insanely expensive, in the neighborhood of a few maybe tens of thousands of dollars, we'll put, and it adds a new capability to us. We would learn all the new talents we have to do to be able to use it right and be able to teach it how to use it right. And we'll bring it in so that people have access to more and more different digital fabrication tools. One of the workhorses for us are laser cutters. This tends to be one of our most utilized machines. Basically, a laser cutter is just a device that has a very, very, very precisely controlled laser. You create a digital file in a specific design, and by changing different settings on how the laser operates, you can either have it work in very high power mode to cut through material, right? And that material could be wood, leather, cardboard, plastics, plexi. We don't do metal, but there are some lasers that do metal, right? Or you can have it on lower setting and actually just etches the metal, right? So etches any material you want. So at the bottom there, you see a few samples of what people could do in a laser cutter. We have 2 form factors, one larger machine. That could do 2 foot by 3 foot, so a very large piece of material. You can even do actually larger by opening the machine out. And we have a smaller one that's actually really good in that the smaller one's a diode laser, and what it allows us to do is actually just place it onto a surface. So you could have a really giant thing. You could have, let's say, put it onto your wall and have it laser etch something onto a wall or a giant table, because it can be shifted around rather than have to move a piece of material into the laser cutter itself. This tends to be one of our most popular machines that people come in and use, right? Or provide us, get us the jobs for, right? 3D printers. This one now has been democratized, right? Lots of people have 3D printers in Trinidad. There are a few 3D printer societies. I think we were the first to have one. So the great thing about 3D printers is we can teach you some of the more advanced techniques in comes to CAD, right? I'll talk about that a little later. But the great thing about 3D printing is that it used to be insanely expensive. When I first came to the Fab Lab 14 years ago, we had one Stratasys model. It was about half the size of a human, although it could only print on a small, relatively, 5-inch by 5-inch by 5-inch cube. That's the biggest it could print. And that cost, I think, about 50,000 US at the time. And now a 3D printer that costs 400 US can do a better job than that big guy did. So 3D printing is becoming very popular, and lots of people have bought their own printers. Lots of schools have them, and we help. Either you want to use our 3D printers, that's fine, or we teach you the techniques you need to learn to design something to be used in 3D printing. All right. Vinyl plotters, these are very common throughout training as well, but we teach a lot about the design principles and how to use and design an object for a vinyl plotter. Every time you see like a decal on the back of a car with either for sale or they're bigging up the sports team that they like, you can design your own type of item, decal, signage, or anything you want to go on a personalized product, right? And we teach you how to do those designs, and we give you a variety of different types of things to cut on, right? And then you could personalize individual items. The CNC router. So CNC routers, basically CNC just means computer numerical control, right? So there are a whole bunch of different types of things that qualifies CNC. The routing one, basically, it's made that there's a spinning router. So people might be familiar with routers from woodworking. But again, it's using a digital file to tell exactly how to cut anything. And it doesn't have to be all the way through that you might be familiar with. You could cut various depths. So like this is the actual model of the one that we have in our lab, right? You can see what it looks like when it's cutting down at the bottom left. At the bottom right, you can see what a finished product might look like. So this will actually be a cabinet door. You can see the amount of intricate work you can get in it. And the great thing about digital fabrication is that you only design your file once, and then you just tell the machine to cut it multiple times. Whereas a standard, let's say woodworking or any type of traditional manufacturing technique where you're doing it by hand, all the really hard stuff is in the actual making of the device. So if I wanted, let's say you might think, okay, you don't have much digital skills and you wanted to make something like this cabinet door, right? You might say, okay, designing it might take me forever, but making one, I'm really good woodworker. It will take me a long time, but not nearly as long as designing it. But every single time you want to replicate that same design, you have to redo all that lengthy labor. So what digital fabrication does is it shifts all the labor and all the time spent onto designing the file. And then it gives you a perfect replication every single time of that product. And you just don't even really need to monitor these machines. They just work on their own in the background. The CNC precision router is, all it really is a very much scaled down version of that larger router. But the difference is this is insanely precise, very, very, very tiny features. So this right here is a circuit board. This is actually a circuit board that I cut for a project myself, right? And designing and building circuit boards is something that we offer, right? So you can imagine the precision it takes if you ever open up, let's say, your remote control or anything, and you look at that little PCB or printed circuit boards on the back, and you see how tiny, tiny all those traces are. This is the type of machine that you use to make those type of circuit boards, or to make more precise 3D molds, right, or smaller 3D designs. It's all key down with precision mill. All right. So we offer workshops. One of the most important ones that we offer is a CAD workshop. CAD means computer-aided design. Most of the time people think of CAD, they think about 3D design. So we teach you how to use various 3D design tools. Some are free, some are paid for. We tailor the workshop depending on the type of audience and what they want to get out of everything, right? But CAD is probably the most useful tool that you would have in designing something for digital fabrication. CAM is computer-aided manufacturing. So this is where we teach you how to actually use the machines with the file that you made in CAD, right? We tailor the workshop to be slightly different depending on what type of machine we're focusing on for that particular group, right? And each of the machines I showed you before, there'll be a separate type of CAM emphasis in those workshops, right? We also offer a bunch of different ones based on electronics. The most of the ones based on electronics are more for schools currently. We are going to offer more advanced one later on, right? But school ones, basically, we help to fill the gap where some schools may be lacking the resources to teach and demonstrate electronics to lots of kids. Electronics is one of the most important skills to learn nowadays for students, to make sure that they have the wherewithal and knowledge to be able to compete in a global modern market, right? And I say, so this is probably one of our most advanced workshops that'll be coming pretty soon. So this is what the CAD and the CAM looks like for designing a PCB. And this is actually my printed circuit board design from a project I was doing. This is what the final product looks like in the bottom right-hand corner, right? So we teach you how to use tools like this to actually design your own circuit, to actually put components into a design file, to learn how to make the traces, and then how to use a machine, the precision mill, and actually be able to cut out a circuit board like this, and how to solder parts on, right? These workshops, it's a whole wide range of different types of persons it applies to, but we tailor the workshop depending on the knowledge person comes in with. So in order to design a circuit board, you kind of have to have a little bit of background in electronics to know what type of component you want and what you want to accomplish. But again, we could hold your hand through that design process as well. All right. And lastly, this is how to reach out to us. You don't even need to remember this, just know, contact NIHERST and ask for Fab Lab. The message will get to anyone on our team, and they are a bunch of very talented guys who are very passionate, really want to help everyone get their businesses off the ground. We really want to focus on rapid prototyping. So getting people with an idea for a product and a business to create a prototype so that they can make sure that their product works properly exactly what they want before they start thinking about how to get to mass production, right? But we also just want to support people who, let's say you have a wedding and you want personalized keychains for every guest. That's something you come in and we'll teach you how to do a sample for the laser cutter, and then we could show you how to, hey, on leather or plexi or anything you want to do, you could throw that kind of job in the laser cutter and you can produce over things. So it doesn't have to be for businesses, but we really, really want to support any new businesses that may arise and help them develop a prototype for their future. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we will we'll save the questions for during the panel discussion that's about to start, and then again, we are always very reachable. So if you don't manage to field the questions to me, don't worry, we will get back to you with responses very quickly. Okay, Joe?
Thank you so much, James, for sharing the innovative work of NIHERST and for your presentation. Well, we'll now move into the panel discussion. I see that most of us have stuck around. We're approaching lunchtime. We're a little behind schedule. So yeah, the mere fact that you're still here shows that you've been engaged in the session, and now we have the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists. So I will go ahead and begin with a few questions that were prepared for our panelists. Any member is welcome to share their insight. My first question would be, how do you see the role of innovation evolving in the next decade, particularly in the context of sustainability? Anyone can chime in here.
I guess I'll jump in. So Emerson made a fantastic point earlier, guys. Are you guys hearing me okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So Emerson made a fantastic point about innovation, and in his definition of innovation, he talked about the shift of wealth, which is very, very interesting because the Caribbean, I think the colonial impact in the region is still very much here. I could give you guys lots and lots of examples, but ultimately there's still an assumption that if it's foreign, it's better. But the Caribbean, if you look at the thread that connects all of us, it's creativity. So we can innovate, we can create, but sometimes we don't appreciate what is born right here. But ultimately, and I think that primary reason is we don't appreciate the shift in wealth that one, we could be the victim to or the victor of. So I think over the next couple of years, innovation will be key because as we really want to do is we want to be able to compete globally to get a bigger piece of that pie ultimately. That's what I'd love to be able to see.
Great response, Leslie. And I think we all agree that's where we would like to be headed. We want to be improving our global innovation index ranking, bringing in some revenue, diversifying our economy and whatnot. Anyone else wishes to share on that question, or can we move on to the next?
I could see the ISO standard, the innovation standard, being used more and more frequently to address the issue of sustainability. I mean, if you look at like the SDG goals, United Nations SDG goals, the innovation standard impacts about 15 of them, sustainability being one. So if you want to even from an ecological perspective, deal with all these issues, being able to systematically manage innovation and gather ideas and develop them to deal with any of the problems that we have, I can see the standard being utilized. And we have to do this quickly because there are various metrics for innovation, such as the Global Innovation Index. In 2008, we were 68th in the world. And since then, we have declined to 108th in the world. And next year, I bet you we're probably going to do even worse again. So we need more innovators being created within our party to solve our problems. And as Leslie said, really appreciate what we have here, really could compete anywhere in the world. And Alwyn Wayne and his business Weepy is the greatest example right now that we have.
Thank you. I see a question from Ashley. Go ahead and speak, Ashley. Wait, let me unmute.
Hi, good afternoon or morning, everyone. I just wanted to kind of answer your question because I work with an environmental group called Canary, and we're looking at how AI is used in the Caribbean for sustainability endeavors. And the UNDP actually had a really interesting conversation about the different ways that it is already being used in the Caribbean. So I could put it in the chat. There was a recording of the meeting, so I could put it in the chat in case anybody else is interested.
That will be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, great. So the other question I'd like to ask is, and maybe Lorenzo, you can touch on this as well. What are the most critical skills and mindsets needed to foster a culture of innovation within organizations?
The most critical mindsets. So the first is empathy, which I spoke about, but it's tied to a mindset about openness. All right. So openness is essential. That allows for conversations to take place and for all of the idea centers within your company to be activated. Those idea centers really are the people, right? And so if leaders are shutting down conversations over and over, then it's going to over time stifle the number of ideas that you get to solve the problems that you have. Openness is the first. Resilience is the next, and embedded in resilience is about being able to handle different challenges that come your way and go boldly into the unknown. And so in that context, if companies build resilience as a core mindset, it means that they will see challenges and problems as opportunities instead of only seeing them as obstacles. So the very thing that will cause another company, one of your competitors, to say, oh my gosh, we can't do that. Here's a big issue in your company. It'll energize everyone to go find a solution that you can over time monetize and commercialize. I think those two, there are others, but in the interest of time, I think I would say that openness and resilience.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm going to read two questions in the chat. One is from Andrew. Given the challenges with Forex and a worsening economy in Trinidad, what do you think the future of business model innovation looks like?
Sorry.
Anyone can chime in with this.
So,
Go ahead, Lorenzo.
All right. Yeah, I mean, business model innovation, the future of business model innovation starts with reframing how we see our industries. Okay. Industries, especially old ones, run on one common business model. Look at all of our banks, look at all of our insurance companies. All of them have common business models because it's the state of play in that particular industry. So business model innovation really requires that somebody rethinks and reframes the way in which they look at the ecosystem. The example I gave earlier of Airbnb is one like that. The dominant players in accommodation services and hospitality across the globe will have been your Hyatts, your Marriotts, etc. Airbnb saw that problem differently, right? And so they considered, hey, there are people who need something that's affordable. There are people who have places that are affordable, that are underutilized. Why not bring those two entities together? And they built the platform that could do it. Furthermore, just this week, literally a few days ago, Airbnb launched and relaunched Airbnb services and experiences. So they're going beyond just the accommodation service that they provided before. And now you can get from spa treatments to other kinds of things around their offerings. So they didn't just stop at one business model, which by itself was disruptive. And in real monetary terms, Airbnb is third in market capitalization compared to its Hilton, Hyatt, then Airbnb. And so they're doing extremely well for a young company. Okay. But then they continue to innovate upon that. So the core business model that they had, they've just extended into additional revenue streams. And I'm certainly excited to see where they go. Let's dissect. Essentially, that means rethink the way you work and deliver your services to customers, and you'll find a new business model.
I could share something so I love that, Lorenzo. I could share something that might not be very popular. I work across the entire territory, and if I were to describe, if I were to use the word innovation, Trinidad might not be the first. Trinidad and Tobago might not be the first country that I would associate that with. It might be countries like Jamaica, for example. And I say this to say, from the perspective, I'm completely unbiased when I share something like that. When you go to Jamaica, guys, innovation is like at the core, and it's in the DNA of the citizens there. And I think it's because we've been spoiled by oil. And the majority of our economy is based on oil. And Andrew says, worsening economy, forex challenges. And that, for me, is perspective. I think that is a massive opportunity for us to rethink the way that we've been doing things and doing service delivery. So aligned with what Lorenzo was saying. But if you look at the companies today who need to access, by the way, guys, I'm forex net positive. I generate more US dollars than I do TT dollars. So that's not a problem I had, because I thought that I never depended on oil and gas for revenue. I looked at how do I expand territory into other areas, et cetera, which is what most of you guys are actually thinking about today. But I share this to say, if you look at any major industry right now, there is a massive shift. Telephone companies want to be banks, right? Banks want to play in insurance. Like there's a big shift happening. So what Lorenzo is sharing in terms of like Airbnb is now doing spa treatments and all of these things, it'll lead to more innovation. But I don't believe that most of us here, and I say here in Trinidad and Tobago, have woken up to the fact that we live in a new world and we need to do things a little differently. So I think there's massive opportunity for us ahead. We just need to wake up one morning and realize that, look, we need to change a little bit.
And just to touch on that point, I was just going to simply say that any business that's operating in Trinidad needs to be export oriented. You want to make sure that you have that forex positive, as Leslie said. And it really is possible and easy to really try and attract business from abroad. But I do know we have some challenges when it comes to PayPal payments and things like that. So they maybe that's areas for some businesses to lobby. But generally, you should be looking for outside the region, outside Trinidad and outside of the region.
Okay, thank you all for that. And while we're on the topic of that, I'll ask my next question, which is, how can collaboration between different sectors, example, education, industry, government, private sector, etc., enhance innovation and sustainability efforts?
Happy to jump in there as well. So I think that is the most interesting point when it comes to innovation, is that innovation is not always reinventing the wheel. Like if you think about where was the drive-through born, right? Simple example, right? Most people would say, what do you guys think? Where was the drive-through born? Pop it in the chat, guys. It's primarily people think about restaurants. You drive through, you pick up a meal, but banks today are using drive-through. So innovation really, for me, happens at the intersection of industry. But it also, guys, it also alludes to what we perceive to be our competitors. Because we would, beyond collaboration outside of industry, we think about like the guy down the road is our competitor. Interestingly enough, this morning, I got an email from Amazon suggesting that I could now refill my prescriptions. Now, obviously, drugs in from the US is going to be a little, but you guys know that you could take a $9.99 out subscription to a doctor from Amazon, right? And I share this to say is that the way that we perceive market opportunity, the way that we perceive competition needs to also shift. We think we compete for a market of 1.4 people, when really there's 7 billion people on the planet, and you could reach 7 billion people on your phone. So the opportunity is massive, and we should really look at who we traditionally perceive as competitors as potential alliances that we could collaborate with. Cool. So that's why I love that NIHERST is bringing everybody together. That's fantastic.
Great perspective, Leslie. Lorenzo?
Yeah, just to add and completely agree with Leslie in how he framed that. I think we do need to see think globally, sorry, and you may start acting locally first, but your end game, and like end game as in soon, has to be thinking about the global market, right? So think in terms of what's the problem that you have locally that is a problem that exists other places, right? And from the get-go, with that global mindset, you can start positioning your company to go global very early on. Speaking to the issue of collaboration between, I think you said, government and private sector and public sector, you said, John?
Yeah, government, private sector, industry, education, all of the players.
All right, so yeah, so that's a significant thing, and we're starting to see more and more of it. I think one of the good examples, there are a couple of interesting examples, UE and UTT. I think Emerson was involved in one of the University of Trinidad and Tobago's launch. I think they had a challenge recently, right? But in the case of UE has something called UE Sail. Without getting into the meaning of the full acronym, what they have done is they bring together businesses and private sector that have challenges and solvers that are coming out of the university and outside of private sector. We saw up until not long ago, the Ministry of Digital Transformation would have had their D-Hub, where the government was now fielding teams of private sector software developers to create solutions and innovations for the public service, right? And so those partnerships could spark major growth and development and major opportunities, especially in the context if the government is buying the service, government being a large provider, it means the funding that could be delivered for one entity here could propel that entity abroad. And I'll give a quick example of some of the companies that are bringing e-services solutions to Trinidad and Tobago government. Companies formed that would have delivered in Estonia and delivered in their country in India, for example. So they built a local solution, but then they go to multiple governments across the globe. And so that partnership creates the test ground for other innovations to scale into global spaces.
Thank you, Lorenzo. So I'll now move into 2 questions from the chat, from the audience. So we have one from Jonathan, which I think is a very appropriate question. What do you think is the best way to balance the job loss caused by innovation and the benefits it brings?
Well, in my presentation, I spoke about the 4th industrial revolution that we are in the midst of, and it's quite impactful. And in any industrial revolution, you have something called creative destruction going on, where yes, jobs are being destroyed, but new jobs are being created. And if you know this change is coming, this wave of change is coming, what you as an individual has to do is to realize that, hey, I need to retool and reskill and relearn. Right? It's not as if you're not aware that this thing is coming, and you already know at least one of the major technologies is artificial intelligence. And as Leslie said in his presentation, you don't really have to be a connoisseur or expert or a mathematician to use artificial intelligence. And so at the same time that there's all the disruption coming, there are opportunities coming. So you and a small team could band together with a right business model and compete on the global stage. So as I said, chaos is not necessarily an opportunity, not just a pit. Chaos could be a ladder for those who are willing to make the right changes within themselves and within their environments.
Yeah, more millionaires are made in economic decline in disruptive markets than when things are all good. So we everybody knows that stuff. Ultimately, guys, so it was a Jonathan.
Yes.
All right. So Jonathan is pure economics. Super simple. So I'll break it down, guys. So let's say we lived in an economy that was completely based on doubles, right? There is on one side of the economy, there's a factory that produces bara, and there's a next side of the country that produces chana, right? The bara factory adopts this technology. There's some people who not going to come along for the journey. They don't want to learn new stuff, right? They're going to lose their jobs. But the bara factory is producing more and more and more bara with less resources. So some people get displaced, some people retrain, reskill, retool. Those are the early adopters. The folks that go home, they lose their job and they realize the realization that I need to reskill, retrain, retool, and they may do that on their own. On the next side, the chana factory cannot keep up with the production that's needed for the bara because we're producing so much more bara now. And then the chana factory is going to ultimately have to invest in the same technology. They're going to automate. Where they're going to get those people? Well, if people that were displaced on the first pass, they might go back into employment. Overall, right, in the short term, there's going to be a lot of job displacement. But in the long term, it levels off as productivity goes up. What that means is we will all have better access to higher quality products, services as consumers.
Thank you so much, Leslie. So, well, this question may also apply here. Risha wants to know, she said she saw an animation. I'm trying to scroll down. So I can't get the whole question. I saw the animation / illustration that was developed with the 3 female leaders in TNT. I inquired about the artist and was told it was most likely AI. I would like to know which AI app I can use to do this. I don't want something that takes years to understand. I think it will also help with label designs. And I also saw a comment by Sophia saying, I guess the free AI workshop would help. So anyone wants to share some further insight on that?
Go ahead, Leslie. I know this one is your.
No, I know. I want you to take this one, Lorenzo. I want you to take this one.
No, really. So there are a lot of AI apps that are available. I would recommend go to ChatGPT and ask which are the best AI tools I may use for image generation, and it'll give you a long list. And I'll make a plug for Leslie, who would have responded. I think somebody in the chat, Sophia, would have replied, guess the free AI workshop would help. And so I'll make that plug for Leslie if you all could participate in his workshop, because he does do an AI intensive, and he'll go through using a number of tools, like real practical hands-on using of the tools and so on. So you can't go wrong with that option.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lorenzo. Why I wanted you to first respond, Lorenzo, is because everybody assumes that the AI person should be answering AI questions. The reality is AI is a skill that we will all need in the future. And Lorenzo is one of the first adopters. He's already using AI. So he could take a position on it. And that's the important part, is that we retool, retrain, reskill so that we could actually have a position on this stuff. When it comes to your question, Risha, what I'll tell you is when you come to the workshop, you'll find out.
Okay, good response. And I saw, Emerson, you also had a follow-up comment on the question regarding job loss. And I would like to totally agree with the comment. The movie Hidden Figures captures the ability to spot oncoming job losses due to technology and how to pivot.
Yeah, just to give a bit extra context to that, I think it was set in the 1950s and 1960s, and in NASA, computers were now being developed. And a lot of the work that computers do today was done by human beings, that they actually call them human computers. But when they saw that the computer was going to make this wave of change was coming, they didn't just sit down and say, oh, it's me. No, they got up, they learned the new skills, and they were able to keep their jobs, but just offering a different level of value for the new reality. And that's the mindset that we all have to get and maintain in this new industrial revolution.
I'd like to quickly build on that. As I said in my presentation earlier, the future favors those who design it, right? And so there's a way in which we have to be very, very, very focused on the future. We have to be assuming that just as we're talking now and making assumptions about what is, that some of the things that exist today are going to change tomorrow. We are not in control of that, right? And so to Leslie's point, AI is going to be a dominant factor in the future. And so leaders in all organizations and all sectors have to be thinking, how do we build a workforce that's relevant for the future? And anyone working anywhere, it is your responsibility to think about that future and how you prepare yourself to function in that future. So as Leslie said, retool and reskill. You have to acquire AI skills. You can't run from it, and so on. I remember learning the mindset around that earlier on in my career. It was in my early career, I was just hired as a web designer and as a web developer. And my bosses who had the right orientation because they saw the future. And I'm talking in 2003 terms. They announced back in 2003, we were one of the leading web design companies in the country and in the region. And they announced, guys, we are going to be leaving web design. And I remember I was hired for less than a year. And I asked the question in our corporate meetings, like, what do you mean we're going to be stopping web design? Okay. And he said, the CEO, Ronald Hines, who was Teleo Systems, he said, because the future is going to come when that thing is going to be commoditized and we'll have no earnings from it. In that moment, I didn't understand, but I trusted him and I followed the journey. Today, websites can be built with a prompt. So he had the foresight 20 years ago that the day would come when it'll be commoditized. Today, we are in that world where if you want to build a website, you could prompt an application like lovable.ai or bolt.new or one of those, and build a whole application and so on very, very quickly right before your eyes in 15 minutes. Okay. And so the mindset is important. The shift that says, I value the future so much that I'm willing to let go of the past. And so go acquire the skills that I need to be relevant tomorrow. And that has to happen today.
That's great. So Lorenzo, I think you're fortunate to have Ronald in your life early, all right? Because you were clearly about 3 years old at that point in time. I'm very good at math, I told you guys.
About 5.
Five, right? See, not bad. I share that to say, guys, is that in organizations today, there are primarily 2 types of people. So we're on the mindset thing. And there are the disruptors. Sorry. They are the explorers and the exploiters. What are the exploiters? The exploiters are people who were paid to make the cog faster, cheaper, more efficiently, which is those are the persons that got promoted in the organization. Whatever your business does today, what it did 20 years ago, the people that got promoted made it faster, cheaper, easier for more people to buy the same thing. What we need today, though, are explorers, the people that say, why are we producing this? And Ronald is one of those people. Fortunately, we had him in leadership. He was the owner of the company. So he had the foresight to see it. But the unfortunate reality is most leaders today are just exploiters. And there's nothing wrong with that, guys. We need both in every organization. But we also need more explorers, which you guys are those explorers. You get to rethink, why are we actually doing this? What's going to happen in 5 years? What's going to happen in 10 years? What's going to happen in 20 years? Unfortunately, most explorers are a nuisance to the organization. But what you'll have to do is, and I've been able to do this very early in my career accidentally, and I realized this is what served me really, really well. I for some reason or other, I got to realize that I believed everybody was crazy and it wasn't me.
Mhm.
And if you're able to do that, guys, that's what allows you to stay on that path. I hope that helps.
And what I would add to what you say, Leslie, that is so poignant. You know, that world of explorers, we have to admit that we really truly don't have the right type of culture environment in Trinidad to really reward that. But if you see your organization is trying to implement an innovation management system, it's for that world of exploration, that world of discovery, because there's different culture and norms and mindsets needed for that. And that's why you have the innovation management system. That if a firm is building it to balance those two worlds, you know, the fancy word is the ambidextrous organization, but we're staying away from terms right now, right? But the innovation management system is really will assist you with that. And in terms of just generally, on an individual level, using the ISO 56000 to guide how you're thinking, when you think of innovation context, if you look at the document, it talks about having the ability to scan the environment. Right now, we could easily all talk about, oh, we know AI is coming because it's out there. But if like Ronald Hines, to have that mindset, that skill set, to know that you need to be scanning the environment and seeing those initial weak signals, and to know that this change is coming before everyone knows, that is a source of competitive advantage. And I want you, everyone in the SMEs, to at least, as I said, not everything you have to implement in the innovation management system, but definitely use it as a guide. So at least you know some of the boxes you need to tick in terms of building yourself and protecting your organization for all the changes that are coming.
Thank you all. Such rich discussion going on, but I know we are over time and we are seeing some persons having to leave. So I'm just going to ask James if he could expand a little bit on his very interesting comment. When do you think AI and automation would become so pervasive that society needs to look at universal basic income? And because I saw some endorsements on the comment, and maybe take one other question from the audience.
Sure. I mean, that is more of a think piece type of question because it's something people think, oh, way, way down the line, and 2 generations later, maybe that might be where society has moved to. But as I see Leslie shaking his head, we've seen the rate of progress so fast in all things automation and AI. When does it realistically become the case that there will not be enough jobs for human beings in the new world? And we have to look at a new model for society.
I see Lorenzo unmuted. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
I find the question is provocative. I don't know if there's any one right answer for it, but I'll weigh in on a perspective. I think and generally most of my perspectives typically are focused on the role of leadership. Okay, when we're talking about income and people losing jobs and so on, there's a responsibility to empower people. There are some people who, for different reasons, are unable to work even today, right? Without AI, there are some people who are in that situation. And so it's part of the responsibility of the state in any country to set up social welfare and other kinds of services to help people, okay? So that's in the case of people who, for different legitimate reasons, cannot help themselves, which is different from very able people who have not readied themselves to be functional contributors to society, right? And I think I want to just stay on that leadership side, which is leaders have to build, and leaders include parents at the most micro level, parents in the homes to raise kids that are productive minded, that are service oriented and ready to go out there and add value, whatever the context is, whether the context was 200 years ago or 200 years into the future. that determination to be relevant and ready to serve has to be there. And so inside of that, it requires equipping, provide the right schooling, education, training, advice, systems, and other kinds of things that would ensure that you have a minority, if any, of people who have no choice but to be receiving universal basic income. I think I see it from the leadership responsibility. And that's not an innovation thing, though. You have to innovate in the way in which you execute on what I spoke about. But I think that's a humanity issue. We have to build productive people.
Yeah. So nail on the head, Lorenzo. UBI, very interesting. When do we need to look at it? We need to look at it today, ultimately, because job loss is going to come so quickly. When it comes to UBI, personally, love it, hate it, right? It could keep people trapped for a really long time, right? So it really boils down to the individual level. Economies have succeeded with social programs. Other economies may not have succeeded with social programs. I think it's a broad brush but for disadvantage because of AI displacement, all of those things, we need to have something in place. I don't know if UBI is the only mechanism that we could look at, but if we do implement it, and I think we should seriously consider, we need to look at how do we get people out of the trap of receiving a check at the end of every month.
I would say that, I think it was the second industrial revolution when it was the main technology was steam powered. There were a group of people who came up called the Luddites. And the Luddites said, oh my gosh, this technology is going to have everyone unemployed. And we now know that is not true. Lorenzo, you hit the nail on the head. He said require leadership. Hopefully the leaders in Trinidad step up and help people generating new skills, understand that the world is changing, understand a new paradigm, so people will be able to look for more opportunities in this age of disruption that we're going on. But I do agree there may be a possibility with AI that some maybe may not have at the large manufacturers around. I don't know, or maybe they may. But we also know that there are many small niche businesses that will be created. There's a lot of decoupling that could happen with this technology, which means more opportunities for those who have the skills and the mindset and the eye and the willingness and the heart to try and seize them.
I just thought it was a good question, as a train of thought, as you all seem to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the future and how fast things are moving. I know that discussion came up globally about 5 years ago, and so becoming more relevant right now.
Thanks,
Great
James.
question,
I think
James.
it was thought-provoking. So I think we could end off on, did I see another question come in? I think we can end off on one last fun question, which is, will we live in the world of Jetsons or the Matrix?
Devendra, all the movies are coming true. Devendra, you probably never heard of this movie, but it's called The Terminator. That could also be one of the episodes that we live through.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are over by just about half an hour, and I know it's lunchtime, so I would like to thank you to say a thank you to our audience for your participation, and a huge thank you to our esteemed panelists for sharing your insights today. Your perspectives have illuminated the pathway to a more innovative and sustainable future, showing us that visionary concepts combined with collaboration can truly shape the world of tomorrow. So I would like to end by saying, as we move forward, let us embrace the strategies discussed here, championing creativity, fostering inclusivity, and committing to sustainable practices. Together, we have the power to empower not just tomorrow, but the generations that follow. Thank you all for your time and dedication to this vital conversation. And before we conclude, we kindly ask that you complete the evaluation for this session, which will be emailed to you shortly. Thank you once again for joining us today. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Neil, for putting it on. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, James. See you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Happy Saturday.
Thank you, everyone.
Same to